Hello, this is Ben of the future, and having recorded the first nearly 2-hour episode of the podcast, I found out that my camera has a recording limit of 29 minutes. Yeah, it's annoying. In between the time of finding that out and recording this, I have found a nice little application tweak to fix that on the camera, so the next episode should be fully recorded and in video. This one, however, is not. I'm really sorry. This podcasting's hard, and this is a new setup, and I'm kind of learning as I go, but I think I fixed it. So for this episode, there is, obviously, if you're watching this, a YouTube video, but some of it isn't visual. In fact, most of it isn't. But some of it is. So enjoy that, and enjoy listening, and I promise it'll be better next week. Okay, thanks for your support, and for understanding. I'm really sorry. Love you, bye. This week on the podcast, we're talking about Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Now that an era is closed and the book is shut, we'll talk about what went well, what went wrong, what we'd change, and our best and favourite moments. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. Brought to you in partnership with the Dice Dungeon, where you can buy yourself some really nice premium D&D dice by using the code We Speak Common to get 10% off. We'll talk more about them a little bit later, but to begin with, oh my god, premiere episode of Table Fables, and I am very happy to welcome my friend, player and co-DM, James. Hello, mate.
All right, it's good to be here again.
It's been a while. How long has it been since you came on? Because you did an episode, probably about a year ago?
I think, yeah, it was probably about a year ago on the whole co-DMing a world thing.
Yes.
Which is getting a bit spicier now.
It is still going, and actually we probably will talk about that a little bit later, because it does kind of come into today's topic. And today, the day we're recording, it really kicks off. So I'm looking forward to that. But
it's the end of an era and the start of a brand new one.
It really is. It feels really cheesy saying that. Honestly, I mean, I was talking to Phoebe about Dragon Heist literally like this morning, and she said, it's been 2 years. It doesn't feel like 2 years of playing a game.
It has been a mental 2 years as well.
I mean, both in the game and in real life.
Yeah.
It's not been an easy one, but a fun one because of D&D. And actually, Phoebe sums that up really nicely, and we'll talk about that later. I have got my cup of tea, so excuse the slurping, but Joe taught me that I can't do a good podcast without a cup of tea.
Oh,
so
well, I'm immediately a failure then, because I've just got my usual water.
Yeah. James is you're a hydro fanatic. Is what I would describe you as.
Oh, it's just, I'm a really strange British person. Don't do tea.
That is weird. Although probably comforting to the American audience. We were trying to describe to our American friend last night British TV, and we ended up showing him Harry Hill's TV burp, and he just didn't get it, at all. Yeah, the type of humour just didn't compute. And Phoebe and I spent a good half an hour just rewatching highlights of the week and just laughing hysterically.
So I woke up to that this morning. Rather, I looked at my phone. 99 plus messages trying to explain this humour to our friend.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, I think 65% of the audience is American. So if you don't know what Harry Hill's TV burp is, just YouTube it. And I mean, you might not get it, but honestly, it's like the peak of British humour. And it's not a kids' TV show either. We had to explain that to Ray. It's a full-on adults TV show. I don't think it's on anymore. I think it's...
No, I've not seen it. I know he still does You've Been Framed.
That's another good one, actually. That's just British people laughing at British people hurting themselves. Which is pretty much what our humour is. Just slapstick comedy. Anyway, D&D. So... This is fun. This is the first proper brand new episode of We Speak Common. So if you are listening to this on a podcast platform of choice, you can also now and go and watch it on YouTube, which is really exciting. Which means you can see me in my small little man cave, and James is up on the screen next to me too. So you can watch it if you prefer to have a visual kind of thing going on while you're doing, I don't know, some work or studying or whatever it is you're up to, then that's there for you. And we are doing our first episode of Table Fables. So I've had a lot of messages like talking about like the different shows and what topics fit into what. So Table Fables is all about the stories that we're telling in our games, whether they are homebrew or module, or whether they are, different versions of different old modules that you've converted, like anything, whatever you're running at your table, we want to talk about. So today is all about Dragon Heist, which after about 2 years, I don't know the exact date, something like over 100 sessions.
It's been a long while.
Yeah, we finished it. It's done and dusted, and we finished on New Year's Eve, just at the strike of midnight, which was not intentional.
It was unbelievably fitting.
It really did fit, and I'm glad it happened that way. If you're new to the show, we've been talking about Dragon Heist for a long time because we've been playing in it for a long time, and it's been a long journey. So today I want to talk about what I did, how I changed it, why I changed it, what worked, what didn't work, what I'd do if I went back, things you can take away for your own campaigns. And James, you are my sounding board today, because not only do you play in it, I think the water pipes are just moving around. I can hear a lot of banging. That's Phoebe trying to run a bath, probably. Not only did you play in it, but you also are my DM in the world. You DM in the same universe that we've sort of I started creating, and I said, "Hey, do you want to come be a god with me?" And you said, "Yes, very much so."
I'm not quite sure I can refuse that offer to godhood.
He really can't. Divine Spark only finds a limited few. And I think you've not read the book, but you do own it, don't you?
I do own it. Haven't read it.
Okay, so
obviously, out of respect for the campaign, not wanting to ruin things.
Thank you very much. So you're gonna have like no knowledge of what should have been, which will be nice because I can sort of tell you the differences.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start with the game in general. So Dragon Heist is published is a 1 to 5 adventure, and it's all about city roleplay, really. I think is the best thing that you get from it. It's set in Waterdeep, big city. There's embezzled gold, a lot of gold hidden away somewhere, and you are up against, as written, one villain to try and get it before them and stop their evil plan.
I'm not sure if it was a big thing in as it's written, but I feel like there's definitely a lot more intrigue in this adventure than in some of the other ones we've played. In playing around with different people and factions, it was quite good to experience that.
Yeah, for sure. So the factions that appear in the adventure are they're quite varied, and they can play a really big point in the adventure. And actually, if you go back a couple of episodes, the last episode we did with Joe was all about why factions are amazing and why you should be putting them in your games and what we've learned from Dragon Heist from them. And they are purely optional as written, but you've got the Emerald Enclave, Bragendarth, the Harpers,
Force Grey,
yeah, Xanath's Guild, kind of. So there are quite a few in there, and it's an optional extra to give your players some extra quests to go off and do amongst the whole sort of role play, find out where the gold is and get it storyline. It starts off with you get into the city and it being in turmoil due to a gang war between the Xanath's Guild and the Zentarum. Zentarum, that's another guild faction who are in it. And you have to go and find Volothamp's good friend who has been kidnapped. His good friend who has been kidnapped happens to be the son of the original Open Lord who embezzled all the gold. And you save him, and then you get sort of thrown into this plot of trying to work out where this artifact is, the MacGuffin, the Stone of Galore, which will lead you to the vault, open the vault, get the money, and return it, if you choose, to its rightful owners, the city. I really like the premise of this book, and I think it is a really good starting adventure if you've never run D&D before, or if you want a brand new start, if you don't want to run the starter set. It's a great 1 to 5 alternative to I Spy Peak or the Starter Adventure, and as written for a new DM would be pretty easy to run. for experienced DMs.
We like to be awkward.
It's a little bit lackluster. We want to change it up, I think, which is what I wanted to do. So there's a lot of resources online. The main chief one is the Alexandrian Remix, which is a fantastic blog. I don't know if you've seen this, James, but as a DM, I suggest you read it, like go through it and have a look at it anyway, because
you have shown it around to us.
Yeah, there's so many good things in there, like things like adversity rosters and outposts and faction, what they called. Response teams, so like the teams that will come after you if you do things, like all these really interesting little things that he's thrown in. And he also takes the story and rewrites it and makes it a lot grander. So he takes all the 4 villains and throws them in. He changes the hunt for the stone, so instead of just the stone, you need to find 3 eyes that go into the stone to make it work. And then like he expands on the vault and all this fun stuff. He makes this thing called the Grand Game, which brings everyone into it into one go. And it is a really good read. It's a fantastic read. Honestly, if you've read Dragon Heist, then go and read Alexandrian Remix and take stuff from it.
I think by the sounds of that, that's essentially what you've done on your own.
Yeah. So I'm the first to put my hands up and say it was not my own work. I read it and I loved some of the stuff in it, and I really enjoyed a lot of his ideas, but it didn't quite link in with my idea of the story and how I wanted to run it. So I took it and changed it. So read the Alexandrian Remix for sure. But then I literally took out some of the key points that he added. Like the Stone of Galore is one of the main MacGuffins in the adventure. Oh, we probably should have said there's loads of spoilers for Dragon Heist in this episode.
Yes, spoilers abound for everything.
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
I mean, if you've got this far, it's kind of clear. But anyway, the Stone of Galore is an artifact, a small stone that holds the Aboleth Galore. There's the big spoiler, which has all of the information in it. But it has 3 stones on it, and one of his big changes, because believe it or not, in Dragon Heist there are no heists as written, really, not a traditional sense.
Not that we did on that.
Yeah, we did a lot of that. He took the 3 stones off of it and made them eyes, and you had to find or keys or whatever he called them. You had to find them, and they happened to be in each villain's outpost. Like that's how far they'd got in the game, which then incited heists into the villain outposts, which is a great way of doing it. And I think if I were going to rerun the adventure for a group that was different to the group that we ran, who I know play differently, then I might do that. But because I knew who I was running for, I was like, they're gonna go in anyway. I don't need to give them that.
Yeah, we like to mess things up, so to speak.
You really do. It's not even funny at this point. You are bloodthirsty, but I love it. So I didn't do that, but it's definitely worth a read and a look into, especially if you want to elongate the campaign. So I said, do you know what? Knowing that we were going in at 5th level, I was like, let's make it grander. Let's get all villains involved. I enjoy that. Let's use the premise of the Grand Game. But then I wanted to expand it even further. So obviously you've got the 4 main villains, who are Jarlaxle, Xanathar, the Castellanters, who are a noble family.
Oh yeah, we kind of ignored them.
Yeah. We'll get to that, because I thought they were going to be the main villains, and then they weren't. And who's the 4th one?
Xanathar, Castellanter...
Manshoon.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, Manshoon, who is head of the... Yeah, he is a good one. Head of the Zentarum. And when I'm reading the adventure, I could see points where all of them could come in at any point. And I was like, well, if they're all in the city, they're all going to be involved. Like, this is a logical leap. So I was like, let's use all of them and let's integrate them at different points and introduce them to the party at different key moments. So that started with the Xanathar Guild and the Zentarum as organizations at the very beginning. I knew that I wanted to introduce the Castellanters in a very specific way, so I'll get to them shortly. Jarlaxle, I was like, well, we haven't got any drow, but we have got some very roguish and very bounty-huntery kind of mercenary type characters, so I can easily link them in. And the last one was Manshoon, who Castellanters, Xanathar, Jalaxel, yes. So Manshoon is in charge of the Zen, so he kind of is introduced, but he as a character doesn't get introduced until a lot later for me, because his whole thing is about being secretive and not being found.
Yeah.
And that might be something I would change if I went back.
You were getting rather abusingly frustrated at the fact we didn't find him until
I was like, guys, come on. You were sitting down and you were like, "Oh, we know we found all the villains. We've got all of them." And I was like, "No, there's one more. There's one more.
I know,
you just don't know who it is."
I was saying there's one more called M, but I think we were in the sort of position where like we don't really care. We know there's $500 million on the line. We can if he pops up, we'll deal with him.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting there thinking, but there's so many cool plot hooks linked to him that I've built. Come on.
Yeah, and we shut all them down.
Yeah, so I think I maybe would have brought Manshoon in a little bit more, but I tried to really play his character to the T, because he is all about hiding. But the thing with him is that, like, one of the main NPCs that you come into contact with, Erstal Floxin, who is kind of the face of the Zentarum, works directly below Manshoon. He is integral to the plot in certain ways, and I thought that knowing that he was linked in with Lilith's backstory, one of our players who got involved with the Black Network, who are the good side of the Zentarum, gets confusing. I thought, oh, you'll definitely follow him and find Manshoon, and it just took you a lot longer than I thought it would, but, you know, there's that. So, I knew I wanted all 4 of them, but then I thought, well, I want to get the city involved more, because I knew you guys would feed into the factions. I knew you would, absolutely.
Yeah, I did. I went a bit mad.
Yeah, but which is great. It's just what I wanted, because if just one person feeds into the whole faction system, it pays off.
Yeah.
But I had the benefit of all of you going, oh, I'm going to go over there and join them for a bit. So it really paid off. But I knew that you'd get involved in that, and I knew that you'd go for the ones that were a little bit more good-aligned and wanting to bring the money back to the city. So I wanted to make the city itself players in the game. So that meant bringing in Lyriel, who is such a big character.
So cool.
Yeah.
You did her really well.
I'm glad, because I was very nervous about running her. I think we'll have to do a Legends and Lore video in the future about certainly about some of the characters in Dragon Heist, because it's full of named NPCs with history and lore.
Yeah.
But certainly about people like Mystra and Lyriel and the Daughters of Mystra, and how they all kind of come together, because this is the first time in 5th edition, I think, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, that I've seen a stat block that references the silver fire that the Daughters and the Champions of Mystra have.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else where it's popped up with that.
No, because she's got that built in, and that's quite fun, and I've not seen that anywhere, and that's very lore specific, so I'll have to go into that at some point. But yeah, I wanted to bring her in as a player, as a representative of the city as a whole, trying to get their money back. So then you've got 5 villains, and I was like, well, there are other people as well. Like there's you guys as a whole.
Yep.
That's 6. There's the Gralans, who are like a low level sort of villain, a midway mini boss kind of thing. Not really, but kind of. So there's 7 there. There's seven players there. And I'm like, well, this is big now. There's a lot going on.
I'm gonna say that's why we had to get the whiteboard out.
Yeah. I'm so gutted that you've wiped the whiteboard off. I kind of wish you hadn't. We could have shown the video of the whiteboard.
It was
but, yeah.
It was mental. There was lines everywhere, writing everywhere.
Yeah. Imagine a pinboard with all the rope. It was like that, but in pen. Oh. Yeah. Did it help?
It did.
Oh, okay.
I would not have remembered all of the different details if not for that whiteboard.
And that's saying something as well, because you're our resident notekeeper.
Yeah, to be fair, that's because a fair bit of people in my life past couple of years, and a lot of notes have been lost, sadly.
Yeah, that's why you always need more than one notekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this campaign definitely has... It's going to test your ability to remember stuff, especially if you run it the way that we ran it. Keep tracking who people are. A lot of people... kind of names got muddled a little bit along the way, and I had to do a little reminder.
It's not just who they are; it's what they want.
Yes,
and as well, because there was a few times where people got confused, and I had to be like, "No, the board says this."
That's not what I've written down.
Yeah,
because they this is the thing, because this is what makes this campaign so interesting. I think what made it so good is that every NPC that is in here and needs the stone wants it for a specific reason. And something that I always struggle with when like building worlds and building NPCs for homebrew games is really putting in that purpose and that reasoning, and it gives you that. Dragon Heist gives you that, and if you want to build on it, I think it's a great place to start and a real great place to build on from. Because as it is as a book, it's such a simple premise that you could take it and make it in a homebrew world. So that is certainly something to be wary of, I think.
You could go absolutely mental with it, because the vault at the end was quite short. Come to think of it, you could make that vault so much more complicated.
I originally planned to as well. I moved the vault to its own location in my game, and my whole plan was to have you run through a whole series of things to get to it, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we just didn't have the time because we knew that Joe was going, and we had to get to it and finish. We had to finish before Joe left. Like that was our one thing. Like if anything else happens, like even if we miss out on a little bit at the end, like that's got to happen. So I had to kind of find you a way to do that. Luckily, I noticed it like a good few months before it got to that point. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to build in a way for them to avoid this stuff if it gets to that case, and luckily I had a way.
We were starting to worry about that. I do remember. Then we kept like, it'll be fine. And then things kept cropping up.
Yeah, as ever, life gets in the way, and you just can't get that D&D session in. But yeah, so there's these 7 villains in this game now, as I've written it, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, they're level 5 to start off with. We planned, because of our duo DM stuff, we planned for them to end at level 8.
Yeah.
So how do I increase that? How do I balance that? How do I improve the encounters and make them a bit tougher? And a lot of the time I think I did quite well. Some of the times I didn't. I don't know if you can remember all the way back to the very beginning and the first couple of sessions where you were in the Xanathar Guild hideout in the sewers.
I vaguely remember, very vaguely remember that. I remember a gazer descending from the roof and Nickelo escaping.
Yeah, and there was as written, there's an apprentice wizard, and because you're level 1 at that point, and there's goblins and things, and I kept all of them the same, like the same creatures. I think I just upped some HP. I changed the apprentice into a mage, I believe. Nickelo stayed the same because he's over leveled for you anyway.
Yeah,
because he was a mind flayer. And I think I put some more guards in there, and there was a black pudding that nearly killed Nathaniel.
Yeah, I mean
that was in there as written.
I don't ever remember thinking at any point, oh my god, this is too easy.
Well, that's good then, because there were points where you as optimized players like cakewalked things, and I was like, oh.
You see, like, to you it looks like we're cakewalking it, but in our minds it's we've prepared and we've got these plans. And if even one thing goes wrong with them plans, then there's chaos. Like with all the orcs thing, the moment Phoebe's character went down, then it all just went.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. That even if, and I think I've said this before on the show, but even if the players get to the big boss fight and it's over a number of like 3 or 4 rounds and it's easy for them, even if I feel disheartened, I know that you guys have had fun because you start planning for that counter as soon as you know that that's a boss you're going to have to fight at some point. Like, as soon as you learn that Nickelo was going to have to be confronted eventually, you're like, right, how are we going to do this? How do we give ourselves the advantage? Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson I've learned this campaign.
It's been mental. Like, jumping around the different creatures, you've got different factions, and I know I've certainly never had to balance anything like that. It's like, I can't imagine what running Grolhund Villa was like.
We'll get to that.
Had we actually properly got in, then
So fundamentally, a lot of the things that happened in the campaign stayed the same. So I added things on, like you mentioned the orcs earlier. That was a fun little side adventure we did for Phoebe's backstory because she's a bounty hunter. She wanted to go on about. She was like, I want to show that off, and I was like, right, I'll give you a bounty to go after. So I built this whole orc raid on a village nearby. So you left the city for a bit. We had the trip to Baldur's Gate that you ran for Orlo's campaign, and he just hired the rest of the party. That Phoebe mentions that. I've got all the players to tell me their best bits and why, and Phoebe does mention that in there.
Nice.
we'll do those towards the end. We had, what else did we have? We had a expedition into the City of the Dead with a big zombie horde that was part of Brom's backstory, who's a fungal druid. Just was a bit on the nose that I brought in a plague when the COVID came out.
That was well balanced.
Yeah?
That I constantly felt like we were walking a tightrope between instant death and getting through it. It felt absolutely amazing, that bit.
Okay, I'm very happy with that. So this isn't really in Dragon Heist, but if you want to add in a fun little side thing, zombies in the City of the Dead taking over, like full on lockdown in the City of the Dead. Bit on the nose with COVID, but whatever. The way I ran that, I had standard zombie stat blocks. I had enhanced zombies. So like, if you're looking for stat blocks, look at things like the Strahd zombie in Curse of Strahd. Look at zombie ogres. There's greater skeletons, I think they're called. There's some in the back of Yawning Portal. Like, they're all kind of scattered around all the books, but there are a lot of different variations on zombies that, if you can find them, can really sort of spice up a zombie encounter. But the big thing I did, I was like, I want to get that George Romero zombie horde feeling. So I put in, for every, like, let's say you were walking down the City of the Dead and you encountered a group of five zombies. One of them would be a normal zombie, or two of them would be like normal zombies, quote unquote normal zombies with decent hit points. The rest of them had 1 hit point. So that when you hit them and when you try to take them out, you got that classic kind of zombie, just get them in the head and they go down kind of feeling.
And then there were the Shriekers.
Yes, then there were Shriekers. So that was very kind of Last of Us inspired, because Brom was a fungal druid. I was like, let's feed on the Last of Us and use those pictures of those zombies. The clickers basically that find you by sound. So every time you got in combat, you were attracting more zombies.
Yeah, we very quickly realised that one.
Yeah, and you actually pried open a mausoleum and hid in there for a while.
Yeah,
which was good fun. I almost forgot about that whole like episode, as it were. I think it was 1 or 2 sessions.
I feel like it might stretch to 3.
Maybe, but I'm really glad you enjoyed that, because that was a big experiment on my part as a DM to see if I could run a proper horde. And if you felt like you were walking that line, then I got that tension right, which is good. But yeah, throw in a few 1 HP zombies so that your players can just have that kind of head popping zombie action, and then just throw tons of them at them. That's pretty much what I did. That was kind of it.
That's when I went full on Game of Thrones with my little familiar Aurene, just.
Oh yeah, flying around using dragon breath.
Yeah. Oh.
That's something else I learned this session. Find Familiar sucks if every single PC has it. It's just a headache.
I feel like 2 of us had a familiar.
At the end, at least 3 of you.
Sorry, at the end it was free. However, for a short time it was free as well, because I gave it to my sidekick Jenks.
Oh god, yeah. Oh my god, Jenks and the kids.
Yeah.
So that's something else we did. So in the book there are these 3 orphan children, Jenks, Squidly and Nat, and you can have them play any role you want. I used the sidekick rules that now this is before Tasha's, so I used the sidekick rules from the UA. Which I think the only really difference, I think we've spoken about this on the show before as well, the only real difference is they've changed some of the things they get as they level. But I haven't looked overly into it. But yeah, the kids came into being a big part of the story. That's a bit of a thing I would do again. I'd make the kids something special.
I think we let you down a bit there with them, as towards the end we sort of started to forget about them a bit. They weren't quite as used as much as we were doing earlier on.
I mean, you're a big party, and you have, you're 5 people, so you don't really need sidekicks.
Yeah.
It was kind of like an optional extra for you. And because you were already level 5 and they started at level 1, I think you were a bit scared to take them on expeditions. Although you did take them on a few things, like they went to the Orc raids and things.
Yeah, I think Jenks got to like 2, 3.
Yeah, and it was nice. Like, Joe Cowrie trained Squidly and then kind of decided, character-wise, that he didn't want to lead him down the wrong path, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Jenks is just kind of studying, but Phoebe really went the other way with it, which was nice, and she took Nat and sent her to school and cured her deafness and taught her how to read and write and speak.
Yeah.
And she is now basically the owner of the tavern that you inherit through the adventure. And I thought that's a really nice way to take this extra NPC who can be something else, but give her a story arc and give her a reasoning. And that all came from Phoebe. So I kind of like that. And I like that you guys as characters, because we still will adventure in this world, could go back to Waterdeep and go into the tavern and see Nat running the bar and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly let down. And I think actually if you had leveled them up and taken them into combat, balance would have been even harder to do. So in a way that kind of worked out for me.
Yeah. I think that's my regret, is I didn't get into Jenks a bit more. I got a bit busy with other things.
Yeah, you had a lot going on for your character. So there's those kids you can use, which are in the book, and you definitely should. There are some optional NPCs while we're talking about the orphans as well, like the Black Viper, who doesn't really have a storyline in Dragon Heist as written, and is just this fun like rogue that you can use. And because I had Lilith and Cowrie, I originally put Black Viper in as an opposition to Cowrie, and then Lilith like fell in love with the character and really wanted to delve into that story. So
I remember when Joe found out who she was, I remember the look on Phoebe's face was like one of complete and like utter, I want to kill you right now.
Yeah, she was really annoyed that he worked it out because she was the first person to get it, actually, and through some very specific means. One of my favourite things was that, so I put in heists for Joe as a thief rogue, and the party got in on them, and the first one was to try and steal, I think he was trying to steal some art.
It was the evidence log, wasn't it?
Yeah, typical Cowrie. But when he got there, it had been raided already by the Black Viper, and she'd left the dice and one of her bags, and Lilith got a mask, one of the Black Viper's masks, and she wore it to the Yawning Portal, where Esvele, who, spoilers, is the Black Viper, happened to be. And she came over, and I remember being like, oh, well, she's not going to react well to Lilith, because Lilith's wearing that mask. And the whole time, Phoebe was like, why does she not like me? Why is she coming over and talking to us, but she's being a dick to me?
Yeah, we all sort of thought her appearance was a bit random and a bit suspicious, but I don't think any of us really pegged why. Yeah. I thought it was more to do with Undermountain and
it was
her
originally
brother going down there.
Yeah, so her being in the portal that night was to help find her brother, which is a plot hook in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And I've tied in Dungeon of the Mad Mage a lot into Dragon Heist as an optional move on from this point. So I was, and this is a thing we've said a lot on this show, is to build in those plot hooks at different points, not just finish one and then start a new one. You have to hook them early. So I was always seeding in different storylines that you could follow at any point, like a branching tree. So she was one of those with her brother in Undermountain. It just happened that Lilith was wearing the mask when she was doing that.
Yeah.
Which worked out quite well. And when she finally worked out, I remember very specifically when her and Wesley finally worked out that Esvele was the Black Viper, she went, oh, that's why she didn't like me, because I was wearing her mask. I was like, thank God you remembered, because otherwise that would not have paid off. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, there are loads of NPCs in this book that aren't used in the story. Maloon, just in general, the Doom Raiders, they can be skipped over if you're not using the factions. Black Viper, Lyriel could be skipped over. But absolutely, if you're going to run this adventure, go full Hawk and use them, because they offer what I think is the most important in this city campaign, because it has been a campaign in the city, is that break from the normal kind of adventure day, as it were, that you guys have. Because adventuring in a city is very different. Like, you don't have the 8 encounters a day, if you follow that rule, or anything like that. You have a lot of downtime, you have a lot of roleplay sessions, a lot of shopping sessions.
Oh, they were fun.
They were fun. I know that's not everyone's bag, but we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, and there were a lot of times when we'd have 2 or 3 sessions with like one combat out of all 3.
I think there's a lot where we'd have no combat at all.
Yeah.
I know there's sessions where we didn't even roll any dice at all.
Yeah. There were. We're a roleplay heavy group though, so that didn't really phase anyone. I did start off thinking like, oh, we haven't rolled any dice, haven't done combat. I hope it was a fun session, but that's the thing that's taught me that I've learned through this campaign is that you don't need dice to play D&D. I mean, you absolutely do, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And it's still just as fun. But yeah, these characters are great breaks in that. I think they're good hooks for side quests and extra activities, as are the factions, to mix up the bag. So I would say absolutely use those. Okay, so factions I don't want to talk about too much because I've done a whole episode on those with Joe.
Yeah.
But use them. NPCs we've sort of covered. Story-wise, the beats are pretty much the same as written, except for Chapter 4. I've said this before, Chapter 4 sucks in the book. It's not good. That's not good, James.
Which one's Chapter 4? I kind of lost track of the chapters.
Yeah. There are only 4 chapters in this adventure, and we made it span 2 years, so there you go. In this story. Chapter 4 is, after Graaland Villa, you basically go on a chase to get the Stone of Galore. And once you've got the stone, you get the keys, you get in the vault. That's kind of how it's written out. And the idea is that the book assumes, no matter what, that the players fail to get the stone from Graaland Villa.
So I suppose there's my question for you. Did you expect us to get that stone?
I did expect you to get the stone, but also because I planned for you to get the stone, in a way. So the book kind of says, the players don't get the stone, the Nimblewort, which is a construct, runs away with it, and depending on who your villa is, takes it to this place, or this place. And then it's like a tree, a chain of events, and it's like the players follow that chain and they go to this place, then if it's this adventure, they go to this place, and if it's this adventure, they go to this place, because it's broken up by different villains and seasons. It's like if it's spring and it's Xanathar, you go here, and if it's winter and Manshoon, you go here. And you find these different encounters, which is great, and it's a really interesting way to have like replayability in the adventure, but it takes away all the agency because you're constantly a step behind. You can't ever, even if you think of something really clever as players, you can't ever get ahead and get the stone because you kind of, as a DM, have to assume they can't to keep that chain going.
See,
that make sense?
That's what happened really well for us, because I felt like we actually became a proper player in the game. Not just at the behest of everyone else. We had people playing to our tune.
Yeah, you had me wrapped around your finger at one point. I was really happy that happened as well, because I took Graaland Villa. Now Graaland Villa is a big set piece in Dragon Heist. It's kind of like a key moment where everything comes to a head and the players really get involved. The Graalands are a noble family. They're working with Erstal and the Zentarum, but Erstal's kind of backstabbing them a little bit. They get the stone, and then the players find out that it's there at Graaland Villa, and they go to get it. That's kind of the hook. But when they get there, Erstal and the Zentarum are in a stalemate with the house guards of the Graaland family, and it's about to be a big bloody murder. I looked at that and I was like, right, how do I set this up? Like, it's a bit intimidating when you first look at it. How do I set this up to play out? And I've got to remember that the players could go to this house at any point during the day or night. I want the other villains to be involved, and I don't know what the outcome's going to be because it depends on the players' actions. So Alexandrian Remix has a really good resource for this because it's got a roster of where people are depending at different days in the house, in the rooms, on the maps. I built out that the Bragendarth group were across the road ready to go in because Jarl Axel had at this point invited you to a meal and was going to say, work with me or I'm going to make a call right now and my guys are going to get the stone while you're on my ship.
I was going to say, sorry, what group was that, Ben?
Yeah, all right, yeah, we'll get to that. You fooled those plans. The Xanathar is watching the house with gazers, and the Zents are obviously inside already. And then the Castellantas I was hoping you'd be working for, but you weren't. So when you got there, I knew depending on the time of day, it was either going to be already a horrible murder scene or just about to kick off. Now I thought you would go in either through one of the doors on the bottom of the house or through one of the doors at the top, like either, second floor or first floor. or ground floor, first floor if you're British.
We went opposite the road, and then on the roof, from what I remember.
Yeah, so you guys found Jarlaxle's faction party waiting to go in and murdered them. And then you... I can't remember whether you went for... Yeah, you then went back to the villa, you worked out somehow that the stone was there. I can't remember how you worked it out.
We didn't know the stone was there. We knew the Nimblewort, which we thought had the stone, had got there.
Yes, the Nimblewort. Yeah, you'd worked out that the Nimblewort had run away with the stone, and you thought that you used the Nimblewort detector, which is a fun thing you can get in the adventure by going through the House of Gond, House of Inspired Hands, Temple of Gond. You found out that it was there, so you were like, right, we'll go in. So when you got there, it was already kicking off. I decided that because of the time that you went, I was like, well, the conflict has started, but it's not ended. So you got there, and like Brom turned into a spider with his druid wild shape, and like descended down the chimney and found dead bodies and all this stuff. And then you could hear fighting, and upstairs you heard. The thing is, none of you actually went in the house.
No.
You jumped down on the balcony, grabbed the Nimblewort, took the stone, and you legged it.
Oh no!
Which is
the
great.
Nimblewort. The Nimblewort was a amount of genius. We like levitated him in the air.
He was trying to escape because Madame Garland, you watched through the window her give him the stone and say run, because at this point she knew Urstel and the Zents were against her.
Yeah.
And he came out on the balcony and you nicked the stone off of him. At which point, so I'd planned that you would get to the point where that might happen, and I'd written out and read all of the rules on chases, and I was prepared for this really fun like set piece where you were running across the rooftops chasing the Nimblewort, and there were like gazers coming up behind you floating around, and then a load of drow jumped down on the roof. Like, I was ready for Jarlaxle's party, if you were inside downstairs, to literally like lasso rope rappel down with their guns and like bash him through the window like a SWAT team.
That would have been cool.
Like, it would have been a really cool set piece, but you guys just shat on all of that.
Yeah, we like levitated the Nimblewort in the air, got the stone off him. And then we're like, right, I guess we'll just go. Yeah,
so you then just left the fight to happen, which meant that the Gralans died, their children were murdered.
We did kind of remove all witnesses as well. All the gazers we made sure to eliminate.
We
didn't want to be tracked.
This is the thing, because I remember specifically coming away thinking, no one has seen you. Like, nobody. Not even Urstel. I was like, how am I going to play that? I was like, how am I going to work that out? So that was a lot of fun. That was a nice little puzzle to get around. And there was a nice payoff at the end when you finally found Urstel at the very last moment. He was like, and he put it together and he realised, he saw Lilith and he was like, it was you that night. Like, he worked it out. Because he's a clever man. So yeah, you completely went against everything I thought. But Gralin Villa is intimidating, and my advice would be to... I usually say don't overplan. Overplan. Overplan for Gralin Villa. I planned where people would be, what NPCs would be in what rooms, at what times, and in what situations. I'd worked out who would be dead. I went from room to room and worked out if the battle ended without any interference, who would be dead and who would be alive, who would win the fight, how would it go, what would happen if the players didn't get involved, like all of that stuff. I really overplanned it, and because of that, every time you did something that I didn't expect, and you did everything I didn't expect, I had an answer, or at least I knew what would happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't leave me sitting there going like, oh, what do I do?
Overplan, but just don't be too clingy with those plans. If you need to, scrap them.
Yeah, absolutely. But by overplan, I mean know the outcomes of NPC battles. Because there are a lot of fights in that chapter, in that set piece, that will happen without any interaction from the players. So... know what those outcomes will be if the players don't get involved is kind of the way I went with it, because I knew that you wouldn't see everyone. There's no way the players would, even if you did it exactly the way I wanted to, there's no way you'd explore the whole of that house, because it's very like, oh, it's all happening, we need to go. Yeah. And the Gralans are a noble family. They've got their own guard, and the city guard come along eventually and lock it down. Like it, and that's the thing as well. It's like, what happens if the city guard catch the players? Like, brush up on my lore. Like, that was a big session for me.
I was there with my free pardon, which I've still got, by the way.
you do still have a free pardon to use for everyone except for Cowrie.
Yeah.
But he don't need it. He don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
He's fine. He basically owns the city.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did you think of Growling Villa? How did you feel about it?
It was really interesting because we solved the problem of the drow across the road, which we kind of knew something was dodgy with them, because why would a group of drow with guns be hanging out across the road where this Nimblewort is meant to be? So obviously we were like, right, we'll deal with them. And then the feeling I sort of got while we were at the actual villa was we were like outside observers that were just sort of nipping in to get what we needed. It's like, right, we're done. Right, we'll go now. We don't need to get involved. I can't remember if we ever read that book that Phoebe and...
You didn't.
No.
You didn't. So you very much were outside observers who nipped in and nipped out. And that book, oh my god. So there is a book on a lectern in the library of the Growlands, and Lilith snuck back in to the crime scene, which was really cool. I'm glad she did that because I got to like walk her through like the crime scene effectively. Because once everything was done, you heard like Northwood became on lockdown.
Yeah.
Because they were like, there's been a mass murder. And you were like, we don't know anything about that. We've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
So she went back in and got to see like how the city guard and that had sort of dealt with that situation. But she went back because there was a book on a lectern. I'm just going to find it because I remember you guys thought it was like a spell book or something like that.
Well, we just didn't know what it was, but it was like we knew it was magical somehow.
G12. Yeah, so there's a locked tome on a lectern. It's where is the description? One corner stands an iron lectern with a closed, locked, leather-bound tome resting on it, which is obviously like the players hear that and they go, "Oh,
it's
that's got to be something." So Lilith stole the lectern because she couldn't pick the lock. Literally, just took the whole lectern and dimension doored as close as she could to the house.
How is that? How we did it? We dimension doored the lectern.
Yeah, she dimension doored out with it to a street, and then she was like, "It's too heavy, it's iron, I can't lift it." So she called Cowrie. Cowrie came along, picked the lock, you took the book, and you just left the lectern in an alleyway. And then we finished the session without her opening it. Because she said, "Oh, do I just try and open this book on my own?" And I was like, "Don't do that. No." Because if you open it, where is it? Tome is meant to be unlocked using a key that Lady Growland wears on a chain around her neck, which she could now not get because she was dead and her body was taken away.
Yep.
The lock can be picked by character, or it can be opened with a knock spell. Opening the book by any means other than using the proper key causes 3 spectres to appear within 10 feet of the book and attack its opener. The magic that binds the spectre is weakened over time. They can exist on the material plane for only 1 minute, after which time they're banished to the ethereal plane unless destroyed first. They manifest as ghostly tea things with elongated fingers. The book itself, really not that interesting.
Is it like a diary or like a collection of...
So... The family crest appears on the book's title page. The rest of the book is written in common and describes births, deaths, and other family events between 1239 DR, the year of the bloodied sword, and 1422 DR, the year of advancing shadows. Of particular note is the little-known fact that Growlands forged pacts with devils in years past, giving rise to a strain of tieflings. All such members of the house were sent to live on a Growland estate in Yarta, a city far to the north, or so the book claims in its epilogue. There are passing references to some Waterdeep family members having been born with tails, which could be really good and really great if you wanted to, like, bribe the Growlands, basically.
Yeah.
And
I think that's more of a blackmail thing, that.
Yeah, blackmail them, and that's what I meant. And, and play off of them. But they were dead at this point, because you didn't save them. So I was like, if Phoebe opens that book, she's going to get into a fight and then she's going to be really disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, as well to us, like, why would we bother to save them? Because they look so suspicious and dodgy as hell in there.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. So, I mean, that was a fun session for sure. And leading up to that, I was getting that tension feel in me as a DM. I was like, oh, we're getting there. The other big set piece we should mention is the fireball in Trollskull Alley, which happens prior. How did that feel for you?
I being co-DM, kind of knew it was coming at some point, but I kind of forgot about it, like those few weeks in the run-up to it, because of things going on. And then it happened, and I just remember thinking, oh shit, what's going to happen now? I remember Ben telling me this is where it all kicks off. What's going to happen now?
yeah. So the
I'm most annoyed about the broken window.
Yeah,
poor old Jake spent hours sweeping that one up, Ben.
Broke your window, which you then had to pay to get fixed. There's dead in the street. People are like sad and crying. You have a brief amount of time to investigate. Did you feel like there was enough emphasis on how much time you had? And like, did you feel like you had to go quick and stuff?
Like, I immediately in my mind went, right, we know magic full stop in the streets is a no. But a fireball has just gone off in the street, leaving bodies. The city guard,
basically a bomb going off.
Yeah, the city guard are going to be on the way. We need to find out what's going on, or we'll be like shut out, which we effectively ended up being. Once the detective people got there, we were really cool, by the way.
Blastwind,
yeah.
Barnabas Blastwind, I believe. His name
and I think I gave over the necklace of fireballs to him.
I'm glad you did that because again, balancing.
Yeah.
But also, it's now a piece of evidence, and this is the thing. Something that never came up, and I thought it would, and I planned for it to come up because Cowrie is a thief. Was the code legal? You always ran with it, and you specifically always reminded people like, okay, that's illegal. We shouldn't do that. We're in the streets right now.
Yeah.
Because it is an ever-present thing, but none of you were ever arrested, which can be tricky, I think, when thinking about this campaign. It's like, what do I do?
I came really close at the festival. When I was purposefully making distractions, Cowrie to steal that wand.
Yes, you did. Yeah, that's the one time you played the code legal off on me, basically.
Yeah.
But like, there was one thing when I sorted a heist for Cowrie as an extra piece because I knew he was like, I'm gonna go in. You had to buy expensive clothes to go to an opera, and you're like, I'm gonna heist that really expensive clothes place, and I was like, okay, I'll plan that for you, and I built it that it had to be a really like high end, like there was like 13k worth of gold in there, and I had to say to Joe, mate, I said to him outside a game, I was like, dude, if you get caught, it is basically your character dying, because the law for the amount of grand larceny that you're doing could be death, but if not, it's imprisonment for years. And he was like, yeah, cool, I'll risk it, and I was like, okay, fine.
It paid off.
It did. I paid big day.
Yeah.
Big payday. I planned that while I was at work when I should have been working. But Joe and I talked about that in an episode as well. The haberdashery heist.
Yeah.
So I won't go into too much detail, but that was a lot of fun. Speaking of the opera, having been involved with the Harpers, you got an invitation from Mert the Moneylender to come and help out with a Harper quest, because you originally joined the Harpers and then you changed your mind and jumped into
that was because that was Kiro's hook into the adventure. And obviously, I had a teething problems with Kiro, figure out who he was, what he wanted, all that sort of stuff. We got there eventually, and obviously he was part of the Harpers who sent him off, and that's where he first met Cowrie in that house, preventing like what I felt like was a Guy Fawkes style situation.
So your intro adventure with just Cowrie and Kiro, the 2Ks, was you were there to investigate why the house was empty and if it was being used as a gang hideout for the Xanathars as part of the gang war. And Cowrie was there because he'd cased the joint beforehand and was going to go and nick stuff from it. And it was being used as a guild hideout. It was being used as a place to store big barrels of smoke powder, which is very volatile, and if it had gone up, would have blown the house up. So
I never let
it was a fun little
I never let
quest.
Joe forget I had to drag his character half dead out of that one.
Yeah, you did. He owed you for that.
But yeah, that was my intro to the Harpers. And then obviously I sort of tried diving into them a bit, but I didn't really feel like they were Kiro's thing. So the moment the Blackstaff was like, yeah, do you want to join? I thought Kiro would go, yes.
Yeah, he's like, screw this other group. I'm gonna jump in with the magic people.
Yeah, it's like, you've got cool magic staff, magic tower.
Yeah,
what have the Harpers got? Just like a little garden and a house.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, they're more than that. They are a continent-spanning group.
I mean, yeah, they're a lot more than that.
But yeah, so you got invited back, and this is the thing. This is where I'd really cemented in the Castellantas, because I planned when I was writing up my document before we started running, I planned the Castellantas to be the main villain out of all four, because they themselves seem the most up and up. Kind of. Brom kind of put a nail in
I don't think it was just Brom. I think we were all like immediately suspicious.
You were all a little bit sus, yeah. So they are a noble family. They are very rich. They are of high rapport, and they ask you for your help. Because their children are cursed and are in a contract with Asmodeus, however you want to say it, and they have to pay 99,000 gold pieces to... No. 99,000?
Wasn't it 999,000, yeah.
999,999 gold pieces
yes.
to free their souls from the contract, and if they turn 7, their souls will be claimed. And their birthday is like 3 months away.
Yeah.
So the Castellantas, having a lot of money, just need a little bit more to save their kids. That's their plight. And I thought, the players will eat into that. They're good people. They're going to want to help these 2 poor children. These guys have already lost 1 son. They don't want to lose another. But you walked in, and I had you go in, and you were pulled into the library, which is just next to the butterfly garden, and you watch the kids frolicking around in the butterflies, and look how sweet they are. They don't know they're doomed in 3 months to become demons or devils, and literally was really playing and playing. Lady Castellan is crying and wiping her tears away, and the father is very stern and quiet and doesn't know what to do, and I was like, you're gonna eat this up. Brom, with his ridiculously high insight,
and of all the characters, you wouldn't think to be like that.
No, but he is the moral compass. He just knows when people are lying to him. And now at the end of campaign, he has a ring of truth telling, so even more so.
Yeah.
You just can't lie to this guy. And he was like, Ben, Wesley's getting a weird feeling. And I was like, of course he is. He was like, is Brom getting a weird feeling? I was like, shit, yeah, he is. Yeah. And that's all he needed. All he needed was one weird feeling, because then he started questioning, because Brom is so dumb, bless his heart, that he just asks straight out questions, and they didn't have the answers. They were like, or they didn't give good enough answers for you, so you didn't buy into them. But I was hoping you would, because my plan was that if you got the gold and handed it over to them, you'd be invited to a feast.
Yeah.
With a load of nobles. I think I've told you this.
Mass murder.
Yes. They would have invited tons of poor from the field ward and fed them. And at midnight, they would have all died from a poison, and you would have all been accomplices. And, oh no, you've been tricked. You've just killed off 100 souls, because not only did they need the gold, they needed 100 souls too to finish the contract. And I was going to double down on that, because the opera that you saw, the story, I planned out the opera. I put in a very specific story. I had actual opera music playing. You had an interlude. The story foreshadows the poison and how it works for that storyline. And I was hoping, when I planned it, that you'd notice that at the end and be like, oh my god, we should have seen it coming. Ben's a genius. But never mind. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, you wish. You wish for that moment.
Yeah.
So
I think
before we move on from Castellantas,
yeah, go on.
Kiro completely and utterly grassed them up. He told them about the devil in the attic and everything. So,
to the
black staff. Yeah. So what is their canon ending? That's what I want to know. Are they lounging away in the dungeons?
That is a good question. The Castellantas are still a noble family, and they are still in the public eye a good, lasting noble family. Privately, there would have been an investigation. The Castellantas have a cult to Asmodeus, and they have a cult hideout. They would have been able to do something about their son, who is a demon, chained upstairs.
Damn
it. This is the thing. They've got a lot of resources. There would have been a way for them to get around it. There is a chance that the demon could have been found, and the law come down on them and investigate them, but because they've got so much over other people, they literally can just pick a cultist and be like, it was them, and because they've got so much sway politically, they can kind of...
You've just given Kiro his next quest. He will have them brought low.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, I was hoping they become more. So I think if in the future if I were to do it again, I'd maybe change some things around them, maybe give them maybe introduce them slightly differently or earlier on, make them a bit more. Like I tried to cement that there was a Castellanta bank on your street and cement the name a bit more. But I don't know. There was something around that. If you're going to use the Castellantas, you've got to really plan how you're going to do it and make sure that they can effectively hook the players in to their plot without giving anything away.
Yeah, but we're just naturally suspicious. We
Yeah. You see, I think I could have just been like, no, there's nothing. You don't get any funny feelings, Brom. None at all. They're quite up and up. And I could have just done that as DM. Exactly. So what was the point, you know? But yeah, so I think think about what group you're running for with that before you go for that plot. But if you pull it off, it would have been a really fun ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Castellantas didn't really become a villain in the end. They kind of disappeared after that because you were like, we're gonna tell the black staff and then just leave them to it. So very quickly, the main villain became the Xanathar, which I didn't expect. Because I thought Cowrie was going to join the Xanathar, but Cowrie got his madness by going to Baldur's Gate with Orlo and dying, who now, in the future, is succumbing to the death curse. Oh, is that a plot hook for a new group of adventurers? Is Cowrie going to be a group patron? Yes, he is. The madness drove Cowrie to really push the Xanathar into the limelight and make him the main villain. How did you find that?
I found that great. It brought in lots of sort of party conflict, which was good. One key moment I remember was I can't remember who he was talking to about it in like game, but he said, "Am I just mad?" And in my mind, I just went, "Yes, you are literally mad.
You're literally compelled by madness." Yeah. Yes, you are. Yeah.
But no, it was great fun because, like, especially watching when he went down there to speak to the Xanathar, and he was always treading that fine line between getting away with it and being petrified or disintegrated, and just like him sort of trying to play the Xanathar, and then also, in a sense, he was like trying to play us almost, and that's what his character's obviously going to continue to try and do. In enacting his big overall plan. But the whole Xanathar thing was great fun. It tied in quite nicely with what I wanted to do, because I wanted to get rid of the Mind Flayer, Nickelo. And then that final fight was just the perfect way to end it.
So I think the Xanathar, for me, I thought he would be a bit of a comical villain, but I managed to make him quite scary, I think. And actually, I made the Xanathar Guild more of a thug group and more of a terrorist organisation in a way.
I mean,
that kind of wanted to take over.
He had a hall of petrified statues. I mean, that's pretty terrifying. And my immediate thought was, when we solve this, we're going to have to somehow free them.
Well, the thing is, you don't know whether some of those people are like bad thugs, and some of them are actual good people. So you have to free them, work out who they are, and then decide what to do with them. It'd be a long process, but. I think looking back now, I would have been happy either him or Manchun being the main villain.
Yeah.
Because they both have a lot about them. They're both interesting. A thousands of year old wizard with a lot of baggage, or a literal tyrannical paranoid beholder. Like, both of those are really cool villains. And I was happy for Jarlaxle to become like an anti-hero who is up against you but also with you.
Yeah.
We should talk about Jarlaxle as well. We haven't done that.
Yeah, before we move on to that, Xanathar, I was really naughty afterwards, and I went and full on like wicked the Xanathar. Like, I didn't realise there's been like 13 others that were all beholders. So like, them bodies, because obviously I wasn't there for that bit of the session when that happened. Those bodies that Joe found weren't just like ones he dreamt up and killed, or
they were him,
or backups. They were literally previous Xanathars.
It's literally called the Hall of Xanathar.
That is like mental.
Yeah, so the Xanathar, basically, beholders dream up other beholders. They dream up copies of themselves, and those copies fight, and then the living one takes over. So the Xanathar the Xanathar in Dragon Heist has managed to develop a dream machine that stops him from dreaming at all, so he just doesn't dream things up. And a part of the plot was to destroy that machine so that you could make him dream up another beholder and fight, but it didn't quite work out that way. So he has... the Xanathar, as a beholder, has always been in charge of the guild up until Cowrie taking over, because he just dreams up another version of himself who then kills him and takes over.
Yeah.
But because it's another version of himself, he has the same memories, so it is just the Xanathar all the way through. So it's this fun kind of like never-ending cycle that Cowrie has momentarily broken.
Oh, momentarily?
Well, his soul and his mind are trapped in a ring of mind shielding.
That is true.
Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe Joe might find a random eye stalk poking out of his neck at some point.
Oh,
getting a bit round.
That's a fun plot.
His eyes getting a bit big.
Just puts on a bit of weight.
Yeah.
That would be quite fun. That'd be a fun plot hook. But yeah, so the Xanathar has a lot going about him, and can be a very good D&D-esque villain as well, which is nice. Jarlaxle, you guys were invited to dinner with Jarlaxle, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna reveal that he's been watching you this whole time because of his hat of disguise and stuff. He's gonna show you some of his disguises. He's gonna invite you in and say, I know exactly where the Stone of Galore is. Why don't you team up with me?" But you killed his raiding party and then went and had dinner with him.
Yeah, that party, it was just like, obviously we have to reveal if he's been watching us that entire time. We were all a bit sort of set back at that. Like, we had not twigged at all.
Which is good.
But
it's very hard to. He's got a fantastic stat block.
But then at the same time, we're sat there with the stone. We know where it is. We've got it.
And the blood on your hands, literally.
And we're there just like, what have you got to offer us? And basically we just turned him down and was like, no, screw you, mate.
Mm-hmm. And it came to bite you in the bum because he then continued to watch you without you knowing, because he's very good at that.
We knew he was, though, at that point.
Yeah, you knew at that point that he could be anyone.
I think when we were walking out of that vault with that gold pen, in the back of my mind, I was picturing, we're not getting out this easy. There's going to be something there. There's got to be something. And then there he was. I did not expect Jarlaxle, the suave
This is the thing. I love him so much. I'm so glad that he lived through the encounter. But he has been watching you, and basically his whole opinion was that you're just adventurers. He was going to hire you, and then he saw you doing the work. He was like, right, I'm going to let you do the work, and then I'm going to come and take the money off of you right as you leave. Because he eventually found out that you'd killed his mates, his lackeys, and one of his higher ups. And the vault, we should talk about before we get into leaving the vault, is quite small, and I did change it, and I used a lot of the lore that the Axandrian remix offers, and I changed bits a bit to make it link into Undermountain and to link into the Dwarven Pantheon. Would have been fun if one of you was playing a dwarf, but that's fine.
Unfortunately, I'd gone for a gnome this time instead of a dwarf. Not that anybody would know.
No, everybody thought you were a dwarf. Which would have been fun because it's little known knowledge about the dwarfen creation myth and stuff like that. But whatever. Missed hot.
Jenks is writing it up. He's got to get it published for me.
Oh Christ! That's gonna be like dropping a bomb in the church. The vault was, for me, it was more about the role play with a golden dragon than anything else. So Aranax is in the vault. He's a golden dragon. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but his greed for the money has kind of overtaken that. He needs a good reason to give it up, and I knew that you weren't going to fight him. If you fought him, he would have killed you.
Yeah, I did tell you to make him an ancient because we'd have dealt with an adult quite easily.
He was an ancient, yeah. He was an ancient for you at level 8. And how did, you're a big dragon man. You love dragons.
I do.
How did that dragon encounter go?
I enjoyed it.
You can tell me if you were let down. It's okay.
I wasn't quite let down, but sort of he felt a bit too short-lived. He wasn't quite as big and as grand as I'd probably built him up a bit too much in my own head, to be honest with you.
Well, you do love dragons.
I do.
Yeah, that's definitely how I felt at the end. the vault is really tricky, I think, in this book because it is so small. Go on.
I think as well, if we hadn't have dealt with Jarl Axel so quickly and he'd actually managed to join the fray, that would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing, yeah. So basically, the way I'd run it is, Aranax shapeshifts into dwarf, and he would leave the vault and walk around and enjoy times in the city. But with the grand game going on, he hasn't left the vault in a long time because he's protecting it, and it's become his lair. I knew you couldn't fight him, so I had to sort of pull out that role play. But Cowrie is very antagonistic, especially towards dragons.
That was entertaining.
And I had to be very careful around that. So you did eventually convince him, and I was like, "Oh, it's a bit short-lived." And then you were walking out the vault, and Jarl Axel appeared and was like, "Slow clap."
There was one really good thing that you did do with that dragon. Though, was I really got the sense from that he saw himself as completely separate from the other races, in that he was like, I don't care for what you think, because you're fleeting, look at me, I'm ancient, screw you, sort of thing. I did get that vibe, which was really good.
That's good, because that's really important, especially for Aranax too, who has lived in Waterdeep, in my opinion. It's really important for him because he's lived in Waterdeep for so long, and he's been such a he's seen every moment of history.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived through the spell plague. He watched his friend at the Dragon Tower go mad by it, kind of thing. He's seen a lot. And you are like ants in a way.
Yeah.
But he is good aligned. He's just shadowed by his greed.
Typical dragon.
So you left the vault. Jarl Axel confronted you and said, right, give me the stone, and give me the gold, and we'll go and say that we work together. Or, if you don't want to say you worked with me, I know I've got some flicker hair. He hasn't got his bald. I know I'm a bit of a naughty
flick of the
name.
feather.
Yeah, flicker the feather on his hat. All right, if you don't want to work with me, just give me the gold and you can leave. Or, here are my friends. You killed their buddy. I'm going to let them have their way with you. At which point you were like, sod all of those options.
Kind of
We're
cold.
going to fight you. Yeah. So Jarl Axel was like, all right, cool, I'm out. Off you go, guys. You do your business. And all these drow pop out from the shadows and start fighting you. Now, I made the encounter deadly, and yet you still cakewalked it.
See, I think that was primarily because we had two or just the one? Two giant octopi helping us.
Oh, yeah.
They were important.
Bron with his giant octopi.
But then, when we had that idea of Phoebe dimensioning door me and her up to the river, me with a wall of force from the Staff of Power I probably shouldn't have had, ready to and we just completely separated those two groups. That appeared.
So, Jarl Axel tried to escape. You eventually locked him off in a wall of force.
Yep.
And I was like, please don't kill him. I love him so much. Please don't kill Jarl Axel. Luckily, you just stripped him of all of his magic items, took them for your own, and then took him back to his boat. So, I mean, he won't forget that, for sure.
Yeah, but he's also not going to forget when Kiro does put in a good word to try and get them to let Luskan join the Lord's Alliance.
Which is what he wanted the gold for.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's the thing as well. We haven't talked about where the vault was. I moved the vault down into Undermountain, 3rd level. So it's on level with the Xanathus Guild.
Where should it be?
And Skullport. It can be in a number of places. It can be under a theatre. It can be... I can't remember. In the City of the Dead, I think. Okay. It depends on which season you run and which chain of events you go through.
Undermountain Skull.
And originally, Originally, I was going to put it in the theatre.
Yeah.
But I was like, actually, no, we're probably not going to run Undermountain. And my plan was you'd have to go through the first 3 levels to get to it. But then I needed that fix. So I put it at the end of the river so that you could use a boat to get down to it and skip Undermountain,
you say we needed that fix. It being at the end of the river was information we got really, really early from the start.
Yeah, because... that's how early I realised that I'd made a mistake.
Wow.
But with trying to work out, I sat down and worked out how long we had, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But also the plan was that at the end of the river, I wanted to reward you if you were clever enough to realise that the river from Skullport ran into Undermountain. If you'd have worked that out and we still had enough time to go through Undermountain, then I would have put encounters along the river, because there are encounters along the Salgarth River.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was either that with encounters or going through the actual Undermountain and going down the Yawning Portal. yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But yes, with things I would change, make the dragon a bit more momentous, I think is the word.
I think maybe with him, had we turned up and he'd have just literally finished, or just be finishing with a group of people that had somehow managed to get there before us, that I'm not quite sure how you'd peg that, what with the whole stone and the keys thing.
Yeah, it's tricky. Or it would have been fun if you were talking to Aranax and then he walked in like,
yeah,
wonderful.
And then we have to
I wanted Jarlaxle to live too,
yeah.
so he wouldn't put himself in immediate danger, not with a whole group of Bregendarth that he can just drop in on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then of course the big bit, which I've had quite a few messages from listeners asking about, the fight with Xanathar.
Oh.
So Joe's original plan. Actually, do you know what? Before we do this, James, we're probably about halfway through, probably a bit over.
Yeah.
There is one thing you need for a good fight with Xanathar. I don't know if you know this, but it is very, very good dice.
Yes. Incredibly good dice.
Your face, you're like, where am I going with this?
Yeah.
You can get some really nice premium dice through the Dice Dungeon, who ship from here in the UK worldwide, and you can get 10% off using the code WeSpeakCommon on checkout. It's a really great way to help support the podcast. Gives us a little kickback, and they're really great guys, so they're worth checking out.
They're also
there's a link
guaranteed to protect you from beholder disintegration.
Tested.
Yes.
Genuinely tested. They currently guarantee that. Small print, not guaranteed, but probably. They're really nice guys, and they've supported the podcast for ages now, and they're Ben and the whole team honestly just always chat to me and talk to me about the show. So they're great guys. They're great guys. You can get the 10% off by following the link in the description of this episode, or by just going to the website and putting the code in at the end. I think you have a couple of sets, don't you?
I think I've got 4 sets. I've got the good old gold ones.
Kirill the Golden, yeah.
I've got the green ones, and then I've got like Frozen Shadows and like Fairy Fire as well. I love them all.
What's really nice as well, a little inside knowledge for you. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, Ben. I'm sorry, I know you listen if I'm giving away secrets, but I know that they're putting in a new shipment order because I've asked for a specific set. Ooh. So if there's any on the website that you've seen and they're out of stock currently, like, I don't know, maybe the very, very nice, very wonderful, what are they called? I've got to check the name now, I don't want to get it wrong. There's a set on there that I've wanted for so long that have been out of stock, and I was like, Ben, when are you going to put an order in and get some of these sets back? If there's any sets on there right now that you think, oh, they're out of stock, I really want them, just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out is what I'm saying. You'll like these dice as well, James. The Plane Shard set, there's 3 sets of Plane Shard dice.
I don't think I've seen them once.
One of them's out of stock. Oh, buddy. Oh. They're resin, but they are so gorgeous. They are. We're talking premium dice here. So the Shadowfell set are the set that I
opens a window on my computer.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have a look at those. Honestly, I know we're egging this out a bit now, egging on the little ad in the middle of the episode. But go and look at these dice. They are gorgeous.
We are dice goblins.
I am a dice goblin. I have actually genuinely, because I'm going to get a set, I've looked at finding a little display tray so that I can have them out. They're that gorgeous.
Okay, yes, they're the first ones that pop up. They are beautiful.
They are, aren't they? They are wonderful. Go and check those out and keep an eye on the website. So, Xanathar fight. Joe had planned that he would use Twinbeard, a Harper spy in the Xanathar Guild, to disable the Dream Machine, therefore putting the Xanathar into a dreamlike state where he would dream another beholder, they'd fight, and then you'd go in with him, like, weakened. I knew all along that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I knew
as well. There was no way we were going to blow up a dream machine, because the way we were going to stop it is going to be big. Like,
yeah.
And plus,
I knew all along that as soon as the Xanathar saw his dream machine was broken, he would not go to sleep. Yeah. So my brain came up with a thing that, well, if you do leave it a few days, what I thought would happen was you'd blow the dream machine up, Xanathar would find out and then just stop himself from going to sleep, therefore gaining exhaustion.
Yeah.
Carrie would get a call from Noscar on his sending stone and be like, dude, you need to get down here and calm the boss down. Like, he's disintegrating people. Like, he's angry. You're the only one who can get through to him. At which point I expect Carrie to just be like, leave you on red. And then you'd go down and you'd fight the Xanathar with, exhaustion. Like 3 levels of exhaustion or something stupid. That didn't happen because you set it off the night you wanted to attack. So the Xanathar went to sleep and then it exploded and it woke him up, obviously. Because he was, like, in it. And so then he was angry, and then you went straight into the fight. And he was on the defensive straight away. So, what's fun, the best thing, the thing I really enjoyed, Twinbeard has been planning to blow up the Xanathar Guild for ages. Yes. And the last time you spoke to him, when Cowrie got him on side, his passing remark, his leaving remark was he said, Cowrie said something like, oh, it's all going to kick off, I'll tell you when. And he said, yes, it will truly be explosive.
Yeah.
And then Cowrie decided to use his invisibility cloak, which he'd gotten, to follow Twinbeard around before he went and set off the Dream Machine, and watched him set up these casks of smoke powder. He set up a few barrels in key to strategic points, and at one point, Cowrie's like, I'm going to lift the lid and have a look. I was like, yeah, you look in and there's powder. And he's like, shit.
I think we all went, shit.
Yeah. So Cowrie put a knife to his neck and was like, what are you doing, Twinbeard? What are you playing at? Which was a lot of fun. So you stopped the place from blowing up, because I was full on ready for you to be like fighting the Xanathar and then the whole place start falling down on you, which would have been really cool. But you stopped that, and I'm actually glad you did, because the realization in all of your faces was payoff enough for me, other than having it blow up. You got into the fight, and the Xanathar was invisible, because he has an invisibility ring, up high by his escape tunnel, and was talking to Cowrie, and Cowrie eventually reveals... I can't remember what he said. He said something really cool.
Oh,
of course he said something cool.
I can't remember either, but it was...
He planned it, but he revealed it with a line, and then the fight began. So, how did you feel about the Xanathar fight? Knowing that all of you had a lot of magical items, I knew that you would win. I was like, they're going to win.
We were prepped to the nines.
But it's like who... And I'd beef the Xanathar up as well to make it a fight. I was like, who is going to die is the question. I knew you were going to win, but who's going to die? You had Maloon with you. You had all of you, and I think that was it. How did you find the fight? How do you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it, because we've got a floating beholder to deal with, and it wasn't like obviously it didn't end up being as close as I think you probably wanted. Because we were that well prepared. I mean, I had a Cloak of Protection and a Staff of Power, which increased all my saves. We then had Potions of Heroism, which gives an extra D4 on saves. But, it was the payoff from us being so prepared. Still it being a little bit, if we roll bad, we are screwed. And then just that image at the end of Cowrie floating over him from his Potion of Flying... and being like, and then just stabbing him in his great big eye, and then us being like,
and it was thematic, and I'm glad that Cowrie got the final hit as well. I did think I wasn't too worried, because I'd given him a lot of HP, and I knew that there would be a fight. And I knew going in that you would win. It wasn't a case of you all losing. There wasn't going to be a TPK. I don't think that would have been possible. Not with the way you were decked out to the nines. And I'm glad that you were decked out, because it was the end of the campaign. It was the end of the era, 2 years. I wanted you to feel all powerful. And you'd all achieved personal goals and things. But it was Cowrie and someone else, Lilith's invisibility, that really got me, because the beholder needs to be able to see the target for the eye ray. For Cowrie really see, and I thought Jalaxel was going to get away. Jalaxel had a wizard waiting to teleport him and everything. I thought he was going to get away, and it was only because of Jalaxel that you got that invisibility cloak.
I think
I was like,
all your problems started with the death of Manchun.
Yes. But they weren't even big problems, though. They were good problems to have. Do you know what I mean? Because you were having so much fun, and all I had to do was tweak the encounter. And I've got a book back there called "The Monsters Know What They're Doing." Oh my god, incredible book! Got it for Christmas, Phoebe. Great gift. It's tactics for monsters, and I read the Beholder section, and it's so good. and it really helps you work out how a monster would fight. So I knew that there would be a decent battle, and I'm glad that Brom summoned an elemental, Brom summoned an elemental and told him to attack Silga's fish tank, which was that was an MVP move.
Yeah.
Because Xanathar loves Silgar, so Xanathar just death rayed the elemental like twice. So you got to see how scary powerful the Xanathar was.
Yeah. He dealt over 90 damage.
You still got that
less than
in
one
turn. Yeah. You got that feeling, which was the important bit. So I'm really happy with how it went. But ultimately, the combination of being able to fly, turn invisible, and how many of you there were what gave you the wins.
Yeah.
And it was climactic. And what was fun was that as soon as the Dream Machine broke, and I thought you might be in Skullport and you descend from Skullport, but you decided to descend through the portal that you had through Nilhor's eye key. Is that Skullport, as soon as the Dream Machine broke, the skulls became themselves again. And the skulls are so much fun. So I don't know if I've told you this, but there are 12 of them, obviously. Yeah. And they have a shared spellcasting pool. So they have loads of magic, and they just fly around just disintegrating and death raying and destroying and burning up thugs to the point where all of the Xanathar Guild just leg it and begin to leave and try and run. A few try to fight. Like, I was ready for you to watch the skulls descend, like these glowing balls of fire descend down on Skullport and just start like fucking shit up, basically.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, so I'm gutted that you missed that, but you did get to see the aftermath in which, like, all of the guild that survived and escaped ran back to the hideout, and you saw them rushing in, and, like, you saw Garudum come in without an arm, like he'd lost an arm in a fight, and, like, he said, you know, Sundeath is dead because Sundeath tried to fight the skulls, and things like that, which was his master, who Cowrie wanted to get rid of anyway, which kind of filled out that plot hook for him. But I think the best bit for me, and I'm glad because this session was a goodbye to Joe as well, and we played on his last session available, was killing the Xanathar. All of those people, Brom was outside of the room and saw all these people running through and was like, uh-oh, what's going on? Garudum running in.
I was ready to start slinging fireballs.
Yeah, I could see that in your face. Garudum running in and seeing the Xanathar's dead body and Cowrie over it, and saying Cowrie, here's what's happened, because Cowrie's like the right hand man of the Xanathar at this point. And then he turns and Cowrie says something like, who was it? I think Lilith or someone in the group turned to him and said, the Xanathar's dead, long live the Xanathar, and looked at Cowrie, and Garudum at that point was like, long live the Xanathar, sure, like, yeah, 100%. And that moment for Cowrie, you all then giving him a quick hug and saying, okay, we've got to go, we need to leave, but you've got to stay.
Yeah.
And leaving him there. Oh, I'm so happy with how that went.
It was really sad at the same time, though. Oh.
Yeah. And you had a big session of saying goodbye to loved ones as well. How did you find that?
Spoiler alert, that is one of my favourite moments of the entire campaign.
Okay, well, perfect segue. Let's do that then. Let's do favourite moments. So let's start with yours, because you've kind of just gone into it. Yeah. So what was your favourite moment? What were your favourite moments and why?
So that's where I've been really cheeky. I've got 3, each one for a different reason.
Great.
So the last goodbye to Kiro's parents is... I felt like it was just such a good moment because I didn't really know what they were like because I'd only been to see them once or twice for the whole of the campaign. But somehow we went and we said goodbye and it was exactly how I would have imagined it. It was just completely perfect, and it was one of those rare moments where I really felt like I am Kiro in this moment. It was great. And
I think that's something I've learned with all of you, because they all said goodbye to the key people in their lives because they thought they might die fighting the Xanathar, rightly so. And I think that's something I've really learned, is if you can really use those family ties with the characters and tie them into the world and give them those connections and play them out properly and work with your players to do it, it gives a lot of buy-in.
Yeah. And I think that's like my favourite roleplay sort of heartfelt-y type moment. And then,
really, does that top Madame Ava in Curse of
No, nothing will ever top that. Never have I
Which is
felt...
the same kind of situation as well.
Never have I felt so strongly for a fictional character, Ben.
There you go.
And then I've got two more favourite moments. One, because it was just so unbelievably funny, and that was us killing Nickelo. Just
yes. We've talked about that in extenso on this podcast.
That was just hilarious. And then my complete favourite moment for payoff and for like full realisation was, of course, becoming the Blackstaff's apprentice. It's just like everything just fell into place. I was like, right, I could leave Kiro happy right now.
That's really important for me. Because these characters can exist and continue, and we probably will come back to them, but because we're moving away from them full time, I wanted them all to have an ending that at least, I wanted one of those endings where you could leave them but know that they're still living.
Yeah.
And I think everybody got that, except for Brom. Brom will continue to be played, and Orlo, obviously.
Yes, I'll continue to torment both of those to great extents.
Fantastic. That's really good. I'm really glad you feel that you got that.
Yeah.
I've got a couple.
I think especially when I struggled so much with Kiro early on, sort of getting there with him, just to finally have that sort of payoff, and I'm now happy with him.
Yeah. That's important as well, and I think I did a lot of work with players during the ongoing game to make sure that their characters were going the way they wanted, because I think that's important. That's a big thing I've learned. Make sure check in with your players and their characters regularly, especially in a long campaign. Yeah. So Phoebe's is really nice. Phoebe's got a couple.
Yeah.
Phoebe said, "This game always felt like it was going to be a big one because we knew we'd be losing Joe at the end of it, but it surpassed expectations and was a true and fitting send-off. Yeah. We've played this game for almost 2 years, so choosing one favourite part is too hard. My introduction to the group was the best I've ever had. The group had come into what was essentially my domain, the Yawning Portal, which is where she was raised, and there was one brave, drunken, stupid man who thought he would plunge into the depths of the portal. Not a good idea, and resulted in a troll being brought up into the bar, which Lilith pretty much single-handedly dealt with. There was the first communication between Lilith and Cowrie, which was chaotic from the start. Pretty sure she rolled an insane stealth and was able to tie his laces together under the bar.
Something like that.
Somehow she joined the party. Yeah, she tripped him up. Somehow she joined the party. Pretty sure it was Brom being a sweetie. I love the first hive we did with Lilith and Cowrie working together to make as little noise as possible and fall gently from the ceiling, even if we didn't get any loot. That was the one with the Black Viper. I loved the fair and the parade and the little games we could play there, especially the one where Davil, member of the Black Network, and Cowrie just had to insult each other. Lilith knew she'd be his friend at this point. I enjoyed the opera, even though we didn't follow the storyline. Sorry, it's fine. I'm not bitter. And then working out who the Black Viper was through a message cantrip. Clever me. Bone Crusher, the zombie horde, the trip we took to Baldur's Gate, Vincent Trench and his puzzle, Wes role-playing with himself as two characters. He made me cry real tears and feel real fear for the Xanathar fight when we all had to say goodbye to our loved ones in case we died. Durnan broke my heart. It was a real full-circle moment to have my only full conversation with Nat as my goodbye to her, as she'd learned how to talk and was honestly badass like me. I've lived vicariously through these characters during this time in our lives, and I'm so grateful that I had something exciting to tell people about in my Zoom calls every week. My dad even asks, how's the tavern going from time to time on our walks? That makes me so happy. We should talk about the fair, but before we do, let me read you Wesley's, because Wesley's favourite was the fair as well. Yeah. So, Wesley sent me his on Discord. Where is it? Here we go. Wesley said, favourite moments, Waterdeep campaign, Waterdeep Festival. I love the immersion of the floats, the activities, and everything about the festival, the games and the competitions, alongside interactions with Esvalet that clued both Brom and Lilith that something was wrong when Brom blatantly said she was being lied to when she faked her fencing ability against the Nimble Wart. It made me love the interactions even more. Plus, Brom got to go home with some seashells, a pack of cards, and other knickknacks, so clearly the best day for Brom. Honestly, though, it's really hard for me to place a singular event which I loved. The entire campaign I adored, from the world building to the interactions from my party members. I got to force giant wizard hats onto my companions, share little mementos, as well as be part of a lot of stories. I even loved the parts where Brom was innocently in Cowrie's pocket whilst talking to the Xanathar, and we could have been disintegrated at any moment. I was definitely gritting my teeth for those scenes, though. So the Waterdeep Festival was the Sea Maiden's Fair. Was that what it was called? I forget the name of the holiday.
I feel like it was the Sea Maiden's Fair because it was the big, the one with the.
Or was the Sea Maiden's Fair with Jalaxel's group? That might have been what that was. Basically, it was one of the festivals, and I had a big parade, and you had a mission to do during the parade, which was to help get someone out of the city.
Yeah.
You also had all these games that you can play. There was a drinking competition, there was a fencing competition, archery, and knife throwing. That's probably one of my highlights as a DM, running that.
Yeah.
It was Fleet's Wake, the festival that celebrates the sea, marinide trade, and the gods of the sea. And the Sea Maiden's Fair are Jalaxel's cover, basically. So that was a big one for me, and I think if you are going to run a festival, Google Fleet's Wake Festival, and there's a Reddit post with a load of different games and things you can run and different ways to do it, and I got a lot of inspiration from those. So check that out, give it a Google. There's Google everything. There's so much stuff online.
Yeah, I will second that from running other games as well. Google and places like DM's Guild are really your best friend if you get really stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So that leaves Craig. Craig said, hang on, that's his character for TOA. Let's not read that out. That's spoilers. Craig, I've got to zoom up. I've talked so much to him about... here we go. He said, it's hella selfish because it's my 2 sessions following my story. The solo session with James and the group session following that. It just felt right. The character was doing what I wanted him to. He was taking lead, taking names, killing and pacifying undead and having some time with his brother after a very long time. So Craig was playing a character. This was a really important session for me. Craig was playing a character and he said he didn't feel like he was getting off what he wanted to. And I said to him, well, do you want... He was like, I'm struggling role-playing as well. I was like, well, do you want to do a solo session, one-on-one, or do you want to do one with just one other person and play a bit of a story from his... that's just about him and try and get into character a bit more? So I built him a story around him and his brother and father, who were all blood hunters, and their clan that they're in, and a nearby town, a city that had been taken over by a lich. And then, of course, the second session, you pulled in everybody, which was fun because you guys were out there waiting for them to arrive and they had to, catch up. How did you find those sessions as someone who played in them?
I really enjoyed those sessions. I remember being in that house with those weird ghosty type people and just thinking it was all really weird. And obviously, I remember joking about how it had that really supernaturally-esque feeling.
Yes. Yeah, it was basically Dad's gone hunting and we need to find him.
But it worked really well, especially when it got to the point where we're like, oh no, right, we can't stay here, we need backup. And that was the point, obviously, where we left, called for backup, which was really cool. And then the bit at the end with Nathaniel's dad, I think the way we all just sort of came together around Nathaniel.
Because Nathaniel's dad is basically a bit of a dick.
And we all basically got round Nathaniel and told his dad to basically go and do one. He nearly ended up trying to kill us. We'd have won, but still.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that probably would have ruined the moment if you just killed Nathaniel's father in front of him and his brother. But
I think they really did
help
Craig sort of come out of his shell a little bit.
Yeah, that's a big takeaway as well. For any campaign, like I said, check in with your players, but offer them some extra stuff if they need it. He really needed the extra chance to get into character without the, not competition, but the story of everyone else going on. He needed a little bit of limelight to really kind of try and shine, and giving him that option with you and I in one little small setting, and then evolving that into a story where everyone then joined in, I think gave him the chance to explore that character more. So I'd advise doing that if you've got a player who's really struggling. Yeah. It really helped. And it was fun to take him away from the city for a bit. So Joe is very busy in his day in life at the moment, as you can imagine, with his new stuff. But he did send me a message on the 1st of January before he went, and he said, and this is why I think this might be his favourite moment. Excellent finale, Ben. Definitely the best fight of the campaign, I think. Stakes, danger, and balance all lined up beautifully. I also love the idea that should Cowrie ever be betrayed, he could blow the place to kingdom come. Bravo. So I think that kind of sums up Cowrie and Joe's favourite moment for you.
He's happy to be where he always wanted to be, and that's at the very top.
Yeah, and I've got a 5-year plan for Cowrie and what he's going to be doing with what will now be called the Locksmiths Guild eventually. Yeah. So he will continue to play a part. And as I say, Cowrie now has the Death Curse, so I'm sure you'll be hearing from him and your other characters, and if not hearing from them, hearing about them in the games to come, which is really exciting because today, as we record, we close the book on Dragon Heist and open up Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
I'm nervous, man.
I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what playing around in the jungle is like.
I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm sure we will talk about, and I will certainly talk about Tomb a lot on the show because it's going to influence a lot of what's going on in the games that I'm running. So
yeah, but it's not just one book we're opening, Ben. I'd say we're possibly opening 2 or even 3 books, depending on where different people go.
This is really exciting. So we've been working on a big co-DM moment with the Lords Alliance meeting, and that happens today. Yeah. 2 DMs on one table. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be beautiful.
I think that's going to be perfect for this meeting, though. We need that semblance of chaos.
Just shouting across each other. Yeah, I love it. I love it a lot. All right, man. Well, look, have you got any final notes on Dragon Heist? Any tips for wannabe players or DMs that you've experienced over the last 2 years?
Suspect everybody of having some kind of ulterior motive. If playing something like Dragon Heist, anything with intrigue. Well, then my last thoughts on Dragon Heist, which is more a message for you, Ben, is that obviously over the last 2 years, quite difficult, and Dragon Heist has really helped me get through that a lot of time. So it's really a big close for me. Yeah, it's been good.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. It's been weird, and I think not to go too hipster about it, but I've always said that I think that storytelling in general, but D&D as well, is such a good gateway into getting rid of your real life problems and thinking more about your fake dragon problems and goblins coming for you and things. And I've had a lot of weird stuff go on. I mean, we've all had weird years these last couple of years. Yeah. Jesus, look at where we are now. We're still in lockdown. I was made redundant. I lost my dream job. You know, like a lot of shit happened.
Yeah.
But this group and this game and this story has been such an escape, I think, for all of us.
It's been
thank
fantastic.
you. It means a lot. That means a lot. It really does. Well, hopefully the next one will be just as good. No pressure. We'll see. We'll work out as we go along, I suppose. If you want to get involved with the podcast, you can. We have a email address. It's WeSpeakCommon@hotmail.com. You can drop us notes, topics, things like that there. Of course, on Twitter @WeSpeakCommon. If you see something on Reddit, it's usually me. And now, if you want to get involved, there is a Patreon. By supporting the Patreon, you get access to a private Discord server, which is alive and popping. James, you're on there.
I'm indeed on there.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
A lot of chatting about things like ice knives and feigned deaths.
Yes.
A few silent judgments, I feel.
It's a safe space, I promise. But if you feel like that's a place you want to get involved with, it is growing every day, then head over to Patreon, have a look around. There'll be a link in the description below, and that is one of the benefits, one of the many benefits. I'll let you go and find them for yourself. James, thank you so much for joining, and I think next week we will continue this Meet the Mod team at the Discord server, because I think Ray's going to join me for an episode of, I think we're doing Tinkerer's Toolbox.
Well, that should be interesting.
That'll be a lot of fun. So, see you next week. Thanks, James.
No worries. Thanks for having me on. See ya.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.